Where did these kind of principles and values come from?
No, that's a great question. So at 19 years old, I became a Christian, and that was a true supernatural experience. I know some people who are not religious will never get this concept, and I explained it to the liking of how do you explain love to someone who has neither experienced love or believes in love? Like there's certain metaphysical concepts that you cannot explain with human words. So I think God is very similar. I think when people don't believe in God and they want a rational explanation, there's no rational explanation a finite being can give for what is infinite. There's none. It's irrational just by definition. And so to me, what happened when I was 19 years old was a real transformation that I only people who know me understand it the best, and people who know me today are seeing the end results of it. But it changed my brain. It just changed my brain chemistry, it changed my brain, the way I looked at life, the way I viewed humanity. It created a lot of different paradigms which created the foundation to a lot of my ideas today. And so 19 years old, that's when everything switched. And then the genesis of those ideas has brought me to where I am today.
It's interesting because I was my mum is Irish, so my upbringing was actually as an Irish Catholic, as I call it. Um, but I'm not somebody that goes to church, and there was a period of time where I would describe it as losing my faith. And a friend of mine about 20 years ago, he just said very simply to me that when people have faith in their heart, he said, when you feel it in your heart, he says, you'll never find a period of your life where you feel alone. And that, I don't know why there was just that somehow, probably because I was feeling very lonely at that point in my life. And at that point, I then started to look around me and rediscover faith in something. And I don't have the words to articulate it, so I apologize to anyone who's listening. It's just I have faith in something that's bigger than me.
Mm.
And whenever I'm feeling down, depressed, or lonely, I realize that's what's missing from my life. And I just look for it in all the things that I find beautiful in the world.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and that's everything from somebody just having joy playing with their dog, or a child
Mhm.
laughing, or just blossom. It's just look for the miracles that are in just everyday life, and then I feel that connection again.
That's awesome.
So, what was happening then before faith, before Christianity?
I mean, I was a typical 8-year old, 19-year-old guy just trying to figure life out. I was playing college football at that time. Recently transferred to Troy University, Division I college in Troy, Alabama, which is a little bit south of Montgomery for those that are familiar with American geography. And so, yeah, I think to me, there was just a regular, mundane living of life. And I think to me, the difference between my faith journey and a lot of people's faith journey, I wasn't necessarily at rock bottom at that point in my life. I was actually doing pretty well. I was relatively happy. So I wasn't like I was looking for something or missing anything. I really wasn't. I was good. And so that's where I think my faith is a bit different because it transcended from a place of happiness versus
Yeah,
a place of misery. So it's really easy to be down and cling to anything when you're down, but it's very hard to change your worldview when you're so high up. And so I think to me that created a unique experience, which led to the person I am today.
would you say then that since you were sort of 18, 19, and you reconnected or found that connection, would you say that it's changed or matured in any way since then?
100%. I think I think to me, I was explaining this concept to men because I think a lot of men feel like religion and faith is for women and children. So it's like Pastor Mark Driscoll would always say 0 to 18, you go to church because mom wants you to go. 35 plus, you go because your wife makes you go. But deep down inside, in your happiest moments from 18 to 35, you never go
Yeah.
because it's irrelevant. And what I've realized is that a lot of men have the wrong view of worshiping, connecting, walking with God. So there's this concept that is in modern vernacular about having a relationship with God. And so that's like the most common words being thrown around for those in religious communities, especially in the Western church. And I realized that while there's nothing wrong with that concept per se, it's really misguided for men. And what I mean by that is that when you think about a relationship, you think about, okay, spending time with somebody, cuddling, dates, roses, flowers. Like you think about a lot of the more feminine parts of relationships. And I think for a lot of men, it's just like, dang, I got to do that with God. You know what I mean? It's kind of throws you off a bit.
It's there
And
because you
so,
can make it sound like a chore.
yeah, because a lot of times, I like even the idea of like marriage is like the wife is the ball and chain. My girlfriend is the ball and chain. The old lady is like it's like a connotation of like restriction and forced obedience through forced labor, right?
Yeah.
And so what I realized is that that's one of the challenges that guys face. So they see, okay, relationship with God means singing songs to him at church. It means reading books about him. It means talking to him late at night and him talking to me. Like, and there's nothing wrong with all those things, but for a lot of guys, that throws them off because it's not the primary way they interact with society. And so when I looked in the scriptures, what I found is that a lot of men worship God not through the things I described primarily, which is considered passive worship, singing, reading books, talking, being talked back to. But men worship God through active worship. And active worship is pursuing your purpose.
Yeah.
So you look at the story of Noah, whether you are a literal interpretation Bible person or not, but Noah worshiped God by building an ark. David worshiped God by slaying Goliath. Like there was things that these individuals did. Abraham worshiped God by leaving his father's house and traveling to Canaan. Like there was a pursuit of purpose that led to the worship of God. And so as a man, that changes your mindset because you realize that you're not worshiping God just by sitting down and singing songs. No, you're worshiping God when you as a man are pursuing your purpose. Your very purpose is your worship, your devotion, your walk with God. And to me, that mindset shift, I believe, is truly revolutionary to men because it keeps them in constant connection to God because that is what they're doing. An eagle worships God by flying. A shark worships God by swimming. You worship God by doing what you're called to do. And I feel like that really helps integrate God to every aspect of your life because he's like a king who has equipped his greatest general to conquer the neighboring village. So you always are going back to the king for support, for guidance, for resources, for tactics, for backup. Like you need him, right? You have this great king. You have this Leonidas. You have this Alexander the Great. You have this King Moctezuma. You have this, King Zulu. You have this great king beside you, and you're garnering the support of him to accomplish the mission at hand. So I think that shift changed how I viewed worship, and I think it changes the way men interact with God because it integrates him with every aspect of their lives.
I really like that. That's genuinely really sort of made me stop and think because that's like I was saying as a couple of minutes ago. What I was badly trying to articulate. It's when I stop, like I said, when I try and be something that's greater than myself, is when I feel the greatest connection and that I am kind of united with everything around me. And like you're saying, it's when you find that purpose and you act on that purpose for means beyond your own self. There's a growth in that expands beyond you. If you
Mm-hmm.
know that just wasn't the answer I was expecting. I really
Mm-hmm.
appreciate that. Thank you.
No problem.